Your dad joke is always ready.
Gotta be. You've trained me well.
Oh, well, good morning, Saturday morning, first day of summer vacation for me as a teacher, Brian. Welcome to the NC NICA podcast for June. And with me, as always, is Brian Russell, the league director of the North Carolina Interscholastic Cycling League. Brian, your summer vacation, has it started yet?
Sean, congratulations on summer vacation. I've just got to share the Fat Albert quote we were talking about at the beginning. You're like school in the summertime, Sean, no class.
Man,
uh,
you let off with your dad joke.
well, I don't Fat Albert joke, dad joke, I don't know, but yeah, it might be some of our older folks in the league, older coaches and team leaders that might remember Fat Albert. Not sure the kids are tracking that, but
Well, I always it ends up for whatever reason like I discover another coach in the league is a teacher. Like I there's so many teachers that are also coaches in the league or head coaches or team directors, and it's like inadvertently I'll like see a post by somebody and it'll be like, closing up my classroom, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know you were a teacher too. So yeah, it's kind of fun. There's a lot of us in the league.
yeah, that's good. So, yeah, to your point, certainly we're wrapping up the season. We're all kind of going into that summer break period as a spring league, but some of the work continues. I was on the line this week with venues, already thinking about 2025 and where we're going to go and what we're going to do. So, yeah, we'll continue to do some of that through the summer for sure. We can talk about some of that on the podcast today, kind of what we're thinking.
Yeah, absolutely, because there is a lot to be done this summer for sure. I think, realistically, like let's start with sort of talking about the end of our last season and that Whitewater Windup that we did at the National Whitewater Center in Charlotte. Uh, I I think a lot of the student athletes that showed up did way more than they intended. Like there were some that orienteering course on Saturday. Uh, the number of kids that wanted to get all of the points, and I think that ended up being like 25 miles of riding.
Yeah, it's quite
And
a bit. Yep.
there were coaches at the end of Saturday that they looked beat. But the kids, like most of the kids were just running around like they were in 25 miles, they were ready to do something else.
Yeah, coaches got their weekly mileage in one day. on on that.
Yep, and then the biathlon at the same time, that was good. But just overall, I think that weekend, the amount of fun that was had with all of the different things was pretty great from what I could observe in my little biathlon venue way down in the middle of nowhere.
Just tons of smiles all across the weekend as far as I saw. And it was, our choose your own adventure season. We tried a lot of new things, and this was one of them. A completely new format for the league where, it was interesting. There was no lack of competition. We didn't have a race that weekend, but as you noted, like a lot of folks tried for all 20 flags. Uh, the kids that were slinging the little water bubbles out of the Nerf guns, like really trying to hit all the targets, and then racing as quick as they could to get back and shoot again. Even the scavenger hunt Sunday morning, folks trying to find all the things on the trail. There was, again, a lot of competition, but a lot of fun and a great place to do it too. Like, that choose your own adventure. I saw a couple families late on Sunday that had hung around and gotten in the water, done some rafting, or, tried out the zip line, rock wall. So thanks to the Whitewater Center for hosting us. They don't typically bring in groups like us to claim some real estate, camp on site. And they treat us really, really well. It was nice having Ridge Pavilion all to our own, doing the end of season awards like we did. And I think we can claim probably the earliest NICA podium ceremony. 2 p.m. we started a podium ceremony. That might be unprecedented.
Yes, and I think you were done with setup on Saturday. Like, didn't you take a nap? Like
Oh
another unprecedented thing for a NICA weekend.
well, that was the idea too. I think an event like that, a little less stressful for everybody. The staff, not a ton of setup. We hope coaches found it a little less stressful than a race weekend, a little more flexibility in the schedule. And yeah, so by I think 3 p.m. on Friday, Sean, like I looked around, like we're about done. I went to my camper, took a nap. The first time ever on a Friday setup day. You never get to do that. You're always like pounding steaks like all day,
Yeah,
doing things. But
you're compiling the list of all the things you got to do Saturday morning and to get ready for the event. So
well,
yeah,
I mean, we kept it pretty simple. Like pit zone was like 4 flags on the corners of pit zone. We didn't, tape out everything and team flags, just like, hey, come on in teams. And it worked out okay. All the teams got along, set up their areas, and there was enough space for everybody. So it was
yeah.
pretty.
And then the end of season awards. So uh that was kind of everything all in one. We did the race series awards for the overall. We did all of the team awards and the individual awards for Teen Trail Corps. There was a lot of stuff going on. What kind of sticks out in your mind as the thing that um, you most enjoyed about the awards ceremony?
Um, that's hard to pick. It's just so great recognizing, excellence and great performance from just so many folks in so many different ways. I think about what we're trying to do here, Sean. We talk about being a youth development league. We talk about building lifelong mountain bikers, and being a mountain biker, it cuts across a lot of different components. There's racing. I race, you still race, Sean. That's part of being a mountain biker. Giving back to the trail systems we all use. 4,000 hours this season, Sean. That is amazing. So job well done to everyone. And I'll probably continue to say it a lot, but as I mentioned, I'm talking to venues right now about the next season. And one of my leading comments is this is an organization that's going to come in and take care of your place, like truly, literally take care of your place. And we've got folks putting that in action. And I think being part of this community is just volunteering with whatever in your local trail club or, those type of things. And so we recognize our volunteers too, the adults. With volunteer awards. And unfortunately, sometimes you know this chief official that sometimes we're quick to penalize, the parent not wearing the helmet or whatever. But here's a way to recognize like really people that are doing the right thing. And so, the top teams in the league are recognized for, I'll call it excellence across all those categories, racing, team trail corps, and then volunteers. And we recognize those teams at the very end. I call it the values award. That's what we value, just being a complete part of the community. And we won't go through all the categories here, but folks can find that on our website. There's a button on there for all the end of season awards. If you want to see the top team trail corps individuals, teams, all that, those are all listed on there. And congratulations to everyone. The link to Deb's photos are on there on the website now. So check out the action if you missed it this weekend. But what sticks out is just we have so many folks doing so many great things, Sean, and it was a way to demonstrate all of that in one place at the end of the season. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll be putting together a kind of recap video to show all of the different things that were going on at the Whitewater Windup so that people who weren't able to be there, they can see sort of like the flavor of what was going on all weekend, which was just a lot of fun. A lot of everybody just having fun on bikes and being together, which was really cool.
Yeah, I'll mention one other thing too, Sean. It might be a question on some people's minds, but this was a new format for us for the spring Trek giveaway. We also announced those winners during the podium ceremony, and I think we're waiting to hear back from a few folks. We've contacted individually who those winners are, and as soon as we hear back from everyone, we'll publish that so everyone knows who the winners were. But thanks to everyone that contributed, over $12,000 raised for the league, and as you know, Sean, a lot of our folks know. Part of that money goes down to the teams that help raise that money to help them for their upcoming season. So a good campaign for us. And thank you to Trek for being there on site. They brought the bike to display that we're giving away, and that was fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. That fundraiser is pretty awesome. And when a team engages in it, like that can be the thing that just funds the team for the season without having to ask student athletes to put in money or anything like that. So it's it's great that sharing model that exists for doing our fundraisers like that.
Yeah, and I guess maybe one other part that stands out, Sean, is just recognizing our senior student athletes. Much like we did last season, we hosted a session with them Saturday night. Trek came in, cooked burgers and dogs, and then I took the seniors on a night ride. But we also called them up to the podiums on Sunday to recognize them. And pretty cool hanging out with young adults, essentially, like Ben Allen from Myers Park. I got to hang out with him Saturday night. Been in the league every single year. Like one of those athletes, just he has enjoyed it, and he came by to say thank you for the experience, um, and just I feel like a parent, Shawn. We launched them from the nest out into the greater mountain bike community. So great to see a lot of them going off to college and staying with cycling programs. And as I shared, any athlete that's coming back as a coach next season will pay your coach fee. We'll pay that in pit zone for you. That's great. You already know the culture, staying connected with the community. And last week, Shawn, they all got an invitation to the NICA Alumni Network, so they can stay connected. They'll be in our, email list, and they can stay up to date on what's going on in the league. It'd be great to have them back in whatever capacity they can in the future.
And kind of on that note, to show that student athlete progression to coach, uh Quinn McGuire, our new grit coordinator, was a student athlete on the South Wake Trailhawks, and then transitioned out of being a student athlete to being a coach for Watauga when she went to college at Appalachian State. And now she is becoming our grit coordinator. So, this whole progression from student athlete to now really taking a leadership role in our organization is pretty amazing.
It, it it is, and congratulations to her. And that's I'll call that a big win for the league. Quinn is one of those people you see, at least I do all weekend. She's showing up and helping wherever she can. She marshals for us, and she's helping out in the grit tent. Just a heart for taking care of these kids, and so that is fantastic for our grit program. And just to clarify for everyone, Shell is not going anywhere. Shell is our programs director, so she has a little bit of time on her plate to take care of not only grit but Teen Trail Core and Adventure. So when she made the announcement, hey, we're looking for a grit coordinator, there were a lot of people like, where's Shell going? Like, no, no, no. Shell's still sticking around. But part of the NICA, called Circle of Life or whatever. Absolutely right. We grow from within, but hey, anyone you're interested in helping out the staff, let us know. Because some people find it's time just to step away. And we recognize Todd Lester this weekend, Shawn, our race director for the past several seasons, who really helped me as I stepped into the league director. Like, how do you run a race? Like, oh my gosh, there's a lot involved in that. And so thanks here to Todd, who's not leaving per se. He's going to stay team director, head coach of the Fayetteville Dirt Grinders, and keep plugging away in Fayetteville to get more kids on bikes. But yeah, a lot of the cool things we did with racing this season, new venues and courses, and King of the Mountain, Queen of the Mountain segments, and live results, and all those type of things. All those things we're trying to do to keep our race program fun, exciting, challenging. We have a lot of credit to throw Todd's way for doing those things. So thank you, Todd, for being part of this league and what you did.
And I think, as we reflect back on this season, like we always are thinking about, our role and our jobs as league leadership, and so these transitions occur as people sort of like move into different phases in their personal lives. And it's one of those things that, like, it's important for teams to be thinking that as well. And so that's going to be some of the stuff that we talk about a little bit later in the podcast, is about, this recognition that you are not always going to be in the position that you're in, and how do you expand and grow and all of those sorts of things. But along that line, like this idea of reflecting on the season, there are some things that we are asking of everyone so that we can gather your input. And we want to remind everyone about the end of season survey, and that is going to be an end date of June 16th. And those were all emailed to people. Is that correct, Brian?
Yeah, I did a mass email several weeks ago with the links to that. I'll probably do a reminder email this coming week, just telling folks, hey, one more week left to get your input in. But incredibly helpful. Some of the things we saw this season, like adventure programming, rides and activities came out of last season's survey. Hey, folks looking for a little bit more of those type of things at league events. So super helpful to hear kind of what you're thinking about how we're doing here in the league and what you'd like to see more of, maybe less of, or changing some things. We will definitely look at those end of season surveys, over the next month or so before we set the plan for next season in its fullest.
And the other feedback that we're looking for, coaches, you were all uh, emailed a link to a form for handbook revisions or changes that you would like to see, and that is going to close out on June 16th as well. So definitely take a look at that if you have feelings about current policies that are in the NICA handbook, or you have suggestions for NICA policies that maybe don't appear in the handbook, writing that out and giving us that feedback. So the process for that is we take all of the information that's shared with us through that form, and we take that to our league rules committee, who then sort of like uh, puts its little revision kind of compaction, maybe bundles a couple together that are on similar themes, and then forwards that on to NICA rules committee, that then kind of looks at it and either approves or doesn't, so that that's included in our next handbook. So there's a process there. It's not simply us saying this is what we want to do. It has to kind of go through several layers, but it's the first step is gathering those ideas, and we have changed things or revised things based on the feedback that we've gotten from coaches. So definitely want everyone to feel like their input is taken seriously, and we want to hear that from you. So if there are things that you want to see changed, revised, or added to our handbook, definitely take a look at that and give us that information.
Yeah, and thanks for everyone who spends some time. I know there's a lot on everyone's plates nowadays, but we do very, very well. And I'll mention, Shawn, I was on the line with Nargis at NICA yesterday, going through our economic impact survey data. We are, I'll call it the best state league in participating in that survey. All state leagues are invited to contribute to how we impact local communities. And our responses are higher than any other state league, is what she's telling me. And just I haven't gone through all the data, but it looks like we still bring about $50,000 to a local community anytime we visit. And again, as I'm in the midst of engaging with former communities or new ones we want to go to, it is at the top of my, call it talking points, is like, yes, I'm going to ask you for a lot of parking spaces. And yes, it'd be great if you can bring out a trash dumpster for us. Need EMS on Sunday. Thank you very much. But we're going to invest in this town. And Nargis even worked with us to include things like all the trail work we did, both before a race event and even on site. As people know, we did some trail work there. Each hour in the community is typically counted as about $30 of work, a volunteer hour is about $30. And so I'm sharing that with communities too and saying, hey, we're going to take care of your place. You let us know, Trail Boss, what needs work while we're out here before we get there. And we've done that, and that's hugely beneficial. So thank you to everyone that participated in that survey. We pushed out in the end of season survey. We'll select some random winners. So thank you to league sponsor Industry 9 for offering a pretty nice wheel set for one of those random folks, and a pair of Cognitive NPB gloves with the logo behind me on here, and then a pair of Ridge Supply socks. So, we'll pick some winners from that for participating in the survey. Hugely beneficial to us.
That's great, because that economic impact especially is like a compelling argument whenever we are approaching a new venue. Like, here's here's what we bring to the table, and that's definitely what gets a community's attention for sure. I think kind of along those lines, we are looking for new venues. Is that correct, Brian?
It is always looking for new venues. I mean, I think that's a constant from a couple different reasons. I think one, the folks like it. We went to some new places like Danville. Like, oh yes, we can cross the border. It's okay. We can we can go north, but I think people like something new. So I like that aspect of it. The other is I'm very sensitive. And just I'll mention another survey because it was very specific, Sean, and you know this, but I sent a survey to the parents of all 189 athletes that didn't register for a single league event this season, just with why, like why are you not coming? And one of those factors that's on there that I'm hearing back from is just travel time. It's maybe a 3 to 4 hour trip for a lot of our teams to get to a venue and spend a whole weekend, and that does come with costs for hotel or whatever the case may be. So I think more venues closer to places where teams are is going to be helpful. Just one of those future season thoughts is, bi-week schedule perhaps. You don't have to travel across the entire state to get to your venue, or we may be conferences here in a couple seasons. East Conference, West Conference, closer to home, I think would be very popular with everyone. That's why we're always looking for new venues.
For sure. And I think it's just part of that future planning that we're always doing. Like it's always trying to see how do we make this so that it's kind of future, not proof, but future forward, and getting that format and everything dialed in. And I think, some of the formats that you added or the league added, but I think really like you were behind kind of thinking about events differently, and the addition of those preseason and season wrap up adventure events, some of those TTC and adventure components that were happening on the same weekend as races, like all of that was sort of your leadership in how do we, I think you call it a full spectrum mountain biker. Like, how do we have full spectrum events that touch on all of these things for our student athletes? And, is there anything about that that you feel you want to improve or add for next season?
You're going to get me on my soapbox, but that's your fault for inviting me on the podcast. But so the phrases I've started using, and I think Sean, we'll take this out to the NICA conference. Me, you, a couple other members of league staff going out to Fayetteville, Arkansas here in a couple weeks. The NICA annual conference, its theme is growth. How do we grow the organization? And I think one of our working assumptions is just like I've mentioned before, mountain biking comes in many different facets, and we're growing a lifelong mountain biker who can do many things. And so I call it a full spectrum mountain bike athlete. So you race, or you do trail work, or you go for long rides, hanging out with friends, and so I think we're trying to replicate some of that across our league events. And the other phrase we started using, programs fusion. The one thing I really don't like, if you want to kind of get on my bad side a little bit, is like use the phrase, I'm just an adventure athlete, or I'm just a racer, or those type of things. It's like, okay, that might be what you're inclined to and you prioritize, but you can do any of that. And we just want to provide that opportunity for folks to explore those different spaces. And I think that's particularly important with our younger folks, middle school. I mean, I think that's just the age. I was talking with Golden this weekend, Sean. You're both educators, and that middle school age is kind of like, finding your way through, call it academic subjects or whatever it is just finding your way through kind of what interests you. And so, one, I think we want to provide that, just that opportunity to explore, and what does being a mountain biker mean to that individual. And then I think back to the original comment about, if you think about our normal event weekend, it's fairly restrictive in terms of when you can do a thing, right? Like course inspection on Saturday is for a category in these hours and then another category in these hours. Well, what are you doing the rest of the day? And then you show up on Sunday and you have what, 40 minutes on the trail or, maybe 60, 90 higher. And then what else do you do with the rest of your day? So if folks are going to travel a long way, let's provide some things to do along that programs fusion or full spectrum athlete as much as possible. And there are stressors there, a lot of volunteers, like, and the team did a great job with it, but those are the things we evaluate. Can we be more efficient with that, with our weekends? But I think that's the idea, Sean. We're just trying to provide that full menu of activities for our athletes to explore and just pursue excellence in whatever their particular facet is.
And I think too, like as coaches, we can sort of redefine what our team is into and feel like we're meeting their needs the best, but we have to keep in mind too that we are an exploratory kind of organization. Like we aren't just trying to hold a race series. And I think when we kind of go, well, my kids are just into racing. Well, that's the part of mountain biking that they've been exposed to. And so let's get them exposed to some other things, because there comes a point in all of our kind of lives that racing is not going to be really feasible for us. Like I remember whenever uh, I had a child, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I can't get out and train there's all these things that kind of get in the way, but yet I can still go out and I can ride and I can have fun and I can do these things and I can start to bring my child along into that. And that's sort of what we want our student athletes to experience is, mountain biking is not just about racing. It's very much about a whole lot of things. Racing being a part of it. That's a lot of fun and can be very important. But we wanted them to see sort of the full breadth. And as I like the term that you use, the full spectrum of what mountain biking is.
Yep, that's what we're trying to do for our folks, and we find time and time again, even the quote unquote racer athletes are going to show up at the adventure area and just spend like hours on the skinnies and the cones and the rock dodge and all of that. And, we just provide those opportunities. That's
And
good.
and not to toot the biathlon horn, but the biathlon, like I had a lot of kids that were showing up that were very like they were race oriented, and so they were like, this is going to be great. And it's a different challenge than just a straight race. Like they would finish that first lap and they would have just blitzed it, and then they get to where they're shooting targets, and all of a sudden that recovery heart rate is the part of the game that now becomes important, and they're just like firing all over the place. And so it was like a different challenge for them and something that was still like competitive, but in a different light. And so it was a little bit more lighthearted for some of them, for a lot of them. And it still had its place for them. And it was purely an adventure thing. We're not introducing a new race format for Sundays, unless we are, and I'm totally down
What
for that.
biathlon? We can't count points for that, Sean, and make it part of the season. But yeah, to,
Like,
to your point, like it's an adventure activity, but it was all competition. Like, and you're exactly right. A lot of those kids came ready to win.
and it's one of those things where like when you incorporate it well, like it's complementary to everything, like adventure, it can be complementary to race goals, TTC can be complementary to race goals, like seeing how trails are built and how they're maintained and things like that can really kind of unlock ways of riding that maybe a student athlete doesn't see, because they're only seeing a trail from the bike, and now they're seeing it from from foot and with a tool in their hand, and they're actually able to sort of like break down a trail a little bit differently than they were just from riding. So all of these things complement each other, which is, I think, the best part of it. I think now, like when we finish reflecting and we think about everything, we start to think forward on what the coming season is like. And so we do have a transition period where we are moving into summer, where that becomes a lot of the time for league staff to be doing the work in the background. We can't just start with the start of the NICA season. That's actually too late for a lot of things. And then we're actually moving into our coach training season, and coach training season that begins in August, and it runs from August through October. And it's mid August to mid October. All of those registrations have been sent out. So we have two things that I need you to be kind of considering. Your level one coaches that have never taken OTBS 101, they all received a link to take the combined WFA, CPR, OTBS 101 training. And that WFA CPR training is hybrid. So there is several hours worth of online work that has to be completed before you arrive for the class on Saturday. Then there's a single in-person class on Saturday that has to be taken. And then that will certify them for WFA and CPR. And then Sunday, they take the OTBS 101 outdoor class. And that is the two big components to move up to level 2 and level 3. So it's kind of like a one-stop shop for your transition planning, for getting people that are going to be able to take over as head coaches and team directors and things like that. So it really is a way for you to get all those level 1s to where they become level 2s. And the super great thing about a level 2 is it helps expand the bandwidth of your team and taking those student athletes. So there's a lot of win-win from taking advantage of these coach trainings. And then the other is that anyone whose whose first aid certification expires prior to the end of the 2025 season. So the cutoff was May of 2025. Anyone whose first aid is expiring um, on or before May of 2025, they received a link to take just WFA and CPR. And so that will help them re-up their certification. And it also puts them sort of on this 2-year training progression that we have, where we will be doing these coach trainings in August. And the next time it comes time for them to renew will be just in time for the next set of WFA and CPR classes. Anything that you want to highlight about that, Brian?
I think you hit the nail on the head just in terms of a very efficient, consolidated way to get level 2s and potentially level 3s. As we were talking this morning, Shawn, I went through the website. So anyone, if you want to go to the coach training page of the website, those dates are listed. If you've got any questions, think you missed that email, contact Shawn, to get you involved in that. I guess two additional things also on the coach training page are the dates for the NICA Leader Summit, the online Leader Summit, which is a level 3 requirement that is absolutely free. The remaining dates for 2024 are listed on there, and I think the next three are September and October. So so head coaches, team directors, if you have those people, hey, here's a level 3 potential coach, sign up for those online trainings, and by the end of October, we could have a whole ton of level 3s in this league, just ready to break out a team or take over for a team. And it just gives additional, like you said, Shawn, capacity. And let me put a plug in for WFA, one from a cost perspective. You've done a very good job, Shawn, with Solo Southeast to dial down that cost. That's probably the most least expensive WFA you can find in the nation right now. And the league is subsidizing the cost for our coaches. So the league is paying for the instructor travel time. The coaches are paying for the course. That's it. The league is not making money off of this. We are trying to help coaches as much as possible. Reminder, start your online training now. If you've signed up, it does take a little while. And what do you say, Shawn? 1.5 speed through the
Yeah,
video?
you can
Yeah.
play the videos at 1.5 speed. They're still totally understandable, but it's a little bit faster. It cuts about 25% of the time out, which is
Yeah.
really nice.
And I think as a way of justification for WFA and why we as a league prioritize it, if you review our venues from the season, most of them were WFA required to lead a ride on a trail more than an hour from definitive care. And we have a lot of places like that in North Carolina. So it's good to have that on your team, many coaches with WFA. And then time and time again, Shawn, I find I'm using that training outside of NICA. And I'll share a story. I was at the Whitewater Center and I was on the kind of drop in to North Main, and that gets a little interesting down routes, corner, and the like. And I was about to drop in, and what I found out later just was a father with his son in front of him. The son went over his bars on that little drop in and banged his head, and the father was not doing a thing. The young man was on the ground. And so I start going down to the young man. I tell the father, hey, I have first aid training. start doing the A&O times 3 with the kid. I'm just like, take your glasses off, please, son, so I can see your eyeballs. What day is it? What's your name? And then, hey, you got a headache? And yeah, my head kind of hurts. I said, Dad, the ride is done. Recommend you take him off, take a break, seek additional medical care. And so the WFA training is some of the best training I've been through. I spent 27 years in the military and went through a lot of first aid training. That WFA is very, very good. Puts you in practical examples as you think through, like, how am I going to handle this? Gives you the confidence to be on the trail. So I love it because, yeah, it's going to be great for our student athletes and great for our teams. But time and time again, I'm finding I'm using it outside of a NICA construct.
And we also met with Solo Southeast kind of at the end of the coach training sessions last year, and gave them a lot of feedback about their online components, and like we would like to see it more mountain bike specific because we are training mountain bikers. There's a certain amount of wiggle room they have. WFA is a broad spectrum certification, so they can't just make a completely mountain bike centric course because you're being certified for WFA, which is kind of a nationally recognized certification. So they have some constraints that they're working within, but they were open and made changes to make things a little bit more mountain bike specific in scenarios and things like that. And they have a new course that they've been building. So interested to see the feedback from coaches that go through that and how those changes look and everything like that. But we want our coaches, really, we want WFA to become sort of like the norm in the league. And so we've got that set up for our level 1, so they just get naturally on that track. And then we have that WFA CPR kind of research class to keep people in that loop as well. So just want to remind everybody that registration is up and running right now. They do all close 30 days before the date of the class. So it's important that you register very early. There is no last minute week of nothing. Like, you've got to be 30 days out because our contract with Solo Southeast says that 30 days out, we're locked in to the number of students that we're paying for. And so if we're holding spaces open for people that don't then register for them, we're still paying for those spaces. So that's why we have this schedule of 30 days out. We no longer are taking registrations. And believe it or not, we opened registration up yesterday, and there are dates that are actually sold out or very close to being sold out. So people are jumping on it in certain areas. So definitely, if you want to be close by to where you live, make sure that you are checking out those dates and locations so that you can get registered now.
Yeah,
The
and I
other,
think two in Nashville, Shawn, two in the RDU area, and one in Charlotte. So the big hubs, you've spread those around the state to make it easier on folks to get to them. So thanks for doing that.
yeah, definitely. And the other thing that we are currently working on is our coach retreat. And I got a couple of questions about OTBS 201 and were we going to be offering OTBS 201 during the coach training sessions. And the thinking behind not having that is that OTBS 201 is not a requirement for anything. It does offer CEUs, so you do get continuing education units that you need to maintain for both level 2 and level 3. But it's not a requirement for level 3. Like, there's some coaches think that, like, oh, I have to take OTBS 201 in order to become a level 3 coach. It's not required. But we are planning a coach retreat that is tentatively going to be in Old Fort, North Carolina, and the Gateway Trail system and things that they've done there, like Lower Heartbreak, which Brian, you are going to be experiencing Heartbreak and Star Gap and Lower Heartbreak for the first time next weekend. You've generously invited us to come along with your family on that as you make your way out to Arkansas. So there's a lot of cool things going on at Old Fort, and they definitely want to see us kind of out there. So that coach retreat, we're looking at a date of the last weekend in October, 26th and 27th. and the tentative location is going to be in Old Fort. So something for everyone to be kind of aware of, and OTBS 201 would be the natural thing for us to offer there, along with a lot of other things to gain CEUs for the weekend.
I think a lot of what we do is community based on to the why Old Fort, very much trying to turn that into a trail town. McDowell County, very interested in outdoor tourism and recreation. Here's a good signal, Shawn. They contacted me, McDowell County, and said, "Hey, I've heard NICA doing good things. We'd like to bring you here to our town. Look great. Love Old Fort. Been through there several times." So it was on the line this past week with Jeremy Poor of McDowell Tech College. He leads the trail building curriculum at McDowell Tech College. He was a recent guest on the Trail Effect podcast, not to suggest other podcasts. Obviously, this is at the top of everyone's listen list, but the Trail Effect podcast is pretty good. They bring trail builders, trail organizations on, and I heard Jeremy Poor a couple weeks ago. I'm like, oh, he's here in North Carolina and he's at McDowell. So just had a conversation with him, and they're opening a small satellite campus down there in Old Fort. So that's one of those potential places we might do our coach retreat. So yeah, pretty neat place, and it'll be fun there. I would say the other thing, just back to our, we're building full spectrum mountain bikers. Well, full spectrum athletes need full spectrum coaches, and that's the idea of a coach retreat. Let's bring in, give some additional training, some additional thoughts on how to do this programs fusion at the team level and the like. So instead of a league summit this year, like we did last year, more philosophical and getting together. Let's focus on some coach training. Let's get those coaches leveled up, so to speak, for the upcoming season.
Definitely, definitely. And just a revisit on policies and things like that. Like there gets to be a drift in an organization where people drift away from kind of the way things are supposed to be done, and kind of a reset so that we bring that back, and not to get too I don't know, too in the weeds on it. But one of the things that I've observed a lot this season is uh, coaches not leading groups and coaches leading from behind. And that is not a NICA policy. That is actually the opposite of a NICA policy. And one of the things that I think you're really good at explaining to people, and that you've helped me kind of understand about rules, is rules and policies are reactionary. They are a reaction to something that has happened. And so anytime we question why there's a rule, it's because the rule directly addresses some issue that occurred, and it seeks to never let that issue happen again. And so that's one of the things when we start thinking about, like, well, this is kind of dumb. I don't understand why we do this. There's a reason that we do it, and it's to prevent something from happening that you don't want to happen. And so it's best to just follow rules as they exist, and then utilize that feedback for revisions, so that if you question something like, well, I don't understand why we do this, put that down in the revisions, and then we take a look at it and go, yeah, this person's right. Like, this would be a good change to this rule. So make sure that you're availing yourself of that, rather than just, I'm going to ignore this, because that's an important part of being a coach.
That reminds me of the senior night ride, hanging out with some of the seniors, getting ready to go, and love Deb Hagee, our photographer. She's awesome. She was there, trying to capture all the moments. And Deb looks at me and goes, "They're going to wear you out." And I was like, well, there's no doubt that Sarah Weaver is probably just could thrash me all up and down this trail system. But I was like, Deb, I'm up front. I'm not getting worn out. I lead the pace, and I'm gonna decide where we go. And because, to your point, that's how we do it uh, as a coach on there, and not to put another point on it. But remember my example at the Whitewater Center. I came up on the father and son. The son was in front on rental bikes, and it was like, come on, Dad, like maybe get out in front of your boy, and that's the idea. Let's like lead the way truly.
Yep. Definitely one of the things that hopefully comes with adulthood is good judgment. And that's why the adult is in the front, because we have good judgment, and we can kind of tamp our egos down and go, well, we're going to walk around this because there's some people that aren't ready for it. Some other things that we've got coming up, to get back to our preview of things. So preseason dates. One of the changes that has occurred is a change to the registration dates, and this has been NICA National kind of aligning us with the way things are in the fall leagues, which is our pit zones opened up in the middle of the month, and they finally sort of realized that was kind of weird. And so pit zone is going to open up for coaches and team registration on September 1st, and then it's going to open up for our student athlete registration on October 1st. And that's going to mean that our preseason dates are going to be moving to October 1st through November 30th. Is that correct, Brian? So we'll have those 2 months fully.
Yeah, that's right. We won't have that weird, registration one day, preseason start the other day. 1 October, registration for student athletes, start of the preseason. And yes, we'll take preseason all the way through 1 December, where we start our regular season. Teams can practice at that point, and preseason 6 events if you're a team, if you want to do a preseason event type of thing. But yeah, so just like you said, aligning to how the fall leagues do it, we're just open registrations the first of the month.
And then we have three preseason event dates, but two of them are truly in the preseason, and they do not count as one of the six uh, preseason events that a team has because they're league level. And so those dates are there will be a grit event on November 2nd, and then there will be adventure events on November 16th, which is still in preseason, and then December 7th, which is regular season. So that'll be kind of the first regular season league event that is held. And both of those are going to be adventure events. Locations are going to be announced later on. Is that correct, Brian?
Yeah, we wanted to get the dates out. I'll probably get those on the website this weekend just so people can plan ahead. But yeah, still working the final details on exact locations where we want to take those events. And I will mention part of that preseason period will be the NICA Eastern Regional, 9 through 11 November. So it's essentially Veterans Day weekend. Registration for that opens up on 15 June. And let me just provide just a couple points of information about that. The format is very similar to last year, so there will be a regional race that will be on Sunday this year, but there will also be a whole host of other activities, adventure riding and a big exposition area, skills area. And so if you just want to go attend and do riding and go to the expo, there's just a general registration that's open to all athletes, essentially. The race is a qualifying race, and the way they're working it this year, Shawn, is if any of our athletes in the 2024 season placed in the top 30% of any race, so any of our four races, if you place top 30%, your parent will receive an invitation on 15 June to register for that race. So it's a qualifying, and I do have the list of the top 30% of each race. If any coach has a question about that, feel free to contact me. And then they'll maintain that until 21 October. And if there's space in those categories, they will open up the race to anyone who wants to come race. So that's the change, so to speak, to regionals this year. But interesting, and we're getting maybe into a topic for later, but might as well bring it up now, Shawn. For the Eastern Regionals, our graduated seniors cannot participate. They are no longer NICA eligible per NICA policy, and I've tried to move that needle 2 seasons now and haven't won. But I did argue, and essentially because NICA is going to ability-based categories for that regional race. So it will be what they call JV3, JV2, JV1, then varsity. So that will be very similar to our categorization. I argued for athletes to race in their 2025 categories so they can race with their ability peers in the same kind of school year season that the fall leagues are doing. And they agree to that. So same thing. We have our draft CPT done for 2025. Thank you, Jim Otto. Thank you, Phil Watson, those guys for doing that calculation. And there's some changes to the way we're calculating our CPT, but we know what those categories are for next season. I'll post that on the website probably next week, Shawn, so people can at least see the draft list of what those categories are. So our athletes will get to compete in their 2025 categories if they go to regionals.
And there's a great discussion that Jim Otto and Phil Watson had of the methodology and what that progression looks like for that category placement table from our final coaches call of the season. So if you want to check that out, like they do a great job and there's graphics. And so check it out on our YouTube channel so that you can see really what's in store for our student athletes to kind of put them in a category that is appropriate for their performance in the previous season. And that kind of brings us to just where we're at and what you're thinking for next season. And I think you already alluded to this because NICA National, they kind of have a theme that they're using for the national conference that we're going to here in a couple weeks. But it's growth. So I think that is kind of your big idea for the next season, Brian. So what do you want to talk about with that idea?
News flash: next season's theme will be level up for a couple different reasons you alluded to. Growth. I spent about an hour online with Dallin Attack a couple weeks ago. He is the former Utah league director. He's now working for NICA National as kind of advisor. And so when you have a league that has 6,000 student athletes, you want to pay attention to kind of what they're doing out there in Utah. And Dallin shared a couple things with me. He says the path to growth is really two things. It's team expansion. It's breaking up into smaller teams in more places that are essentially a platform for access to a student athlete who may be interested, and to facilitate some recruiting. So that, and you have to grow coaches to do that. So those two things are related. Team expansion, coach growth are kind of the two pathways to do it. And you addressed it, Shawn, in the coach training for the upcoming season. We're gonna do all those clinics. We'll do the coach retreat, and we're looking at ways to expand coach training through expanded coach supporters. So those are all good. So the theme is level up for next season. We have been static in growth in this league for several seasons. We're in the 800 to 900 student athlete range for the past several seasons. So I think we've found our sweet spot. But how do we break out of that sweet spot to provide access to more kids in North Carolina to get on a bike and experience what we do here in North Carolina? So that's what my thoughts are going into the season. How we do that, again, let's hear the feedback through the end of season reviews. Let's go to the NICA conference, see what their ideas are on growth. You mentioned the policy. Are there things we can do to make that type of growth easier for our folks to implement? That's what we're thinking about for 2025.
And another thing that I know you and I are engaged in right now is meeting individually with teams and their leadership to talk about sort of their paths forward. Especially our we have some very large teams, and how do they continue to grow and expand, and what's the um, next iteration of their program. And I think that's something that's going to really help inform this growth and expansion model that you're putting forward for next season as well. It's going to be a multi-season project for sure. But I feel really strongly that we're we've hit this sort of plateau, and as soon as we break out of it, then our growth is going to then kind of take off again. We had really fast growth early on and we hit a plateau, and now it's like, if we unlock that, like, where does it happen? What happens to unlock that next step of growth? And then we'll see another spike in growth over the coming seasons. And one of the things that is, I think, going to help is we are now a part of a program that NICA National has introduced, and that is a fifth grade pilot program. And what we're asking is teams to think about it. This is not a requirement. You do not need to automatically add fifth grade, but we want to see that as part of team proposals. If you are thinking, yeah, we'd like to take on fifth graders, then put that in your team proposal, and we'll kind of talk through that as a way of us then, expanding more, getting younger kids involved, and then seeing them progress through the program. What are your thoughts about the fifth grade pilot program?
I'll provide some context, what NICA is thinking, and my thought on it is, and we've talked about this before, I think. I don't think we necessarily recruit athletes into our teams, we recruit families. And I've seen so often where a family comes in, it's either mom or dad coaching and a student athlete, and there's some younger siblings. You see them at practices, they're like over there and can't participate quite yet, or they're at the league events, right? We see those and they're, all over the place. And so I think this is a way to expand down into the elementary school age. And NICA is thinking about what elementary school means. They're evaluating that age category, and perhaps at some day they are included in NICA. But right now, the pilot program, as you mentioned, is just for fifth grade. And the NICA evaluation has essentially said that all of our current programming is appropriate for the fifth grade level, meaning the coach training and what we do. And yes, they will have their separate race category. That is all still appropriate for the fifth grade level. And we've been invited into that pilot program. And I feel very happy about that because they trust us to do that well and give them good feedback. And I think you're exactly right, Shawn. It's not, we're just opening pit zone all fifth graders in North Carolina next season. A team has to say, yeah, I am ready for that. I am structured. Again, it gets back to coaches. Do you have the coach ability to take care of a younger demographic on your team? And so we'll hear from all the teams through the summer and in the team proposal, and get online with NICA probably September with some information sessions. How's it going to work? But an exciting opportunity for us because I think it's going to help us recruit some families with a younger age group that is typically showing up to practice anyway because older brother or sister has to go.
And I really do think that it's it's going to require a different mindset from teams, because if you're thinking, oh, well, my fifth graders are just gonna join the team and be a part of practice, like what's appropriate for a fifth grader and what's appropriate for a varsity high school athlete at a practice is dramatically different. This is not, you're gonna have to really be thinking about how do I engage all of uh, these different grade levels so that they have a practice that is appropriate and engaging for them, because what's engaging to a high school student, what's engaging to an elementary school student is very different. And so I'm looking forward to seeing all of that. But I know that we have some teams that have kind of played around with this because of the structures that they have that are outside of NICA that allow them to kind of incorporate different things that are not NICA specific, but takes some of the learning that they've gotten from NICA. And I know with your own team, Brian, the Dirt Pups, that that program, like seeing those kids and talking to them, just how excited and enthusiastic they are. And it's not just about like, let me get on my bike and ride for an hour. Like they're just excited to kind of be involved in any kind of activity as a group, which is really interesting.
The Dirt Pups were out doing trail work this season, Shawn, with their parents. That's the
Yep.
construct, right? Hey, parents, you're here, great. Go over here, ride it, and do whatever. So it is good to see. And to thread this back to the other conversation we were having, composite teams by design are temporary organizations. And so breaking out a middle school team makes that less of a factor when you have a fifth grader to an eighth grader range to manage from a developmental and ability based group. And that's why the path exists, to break out in smaller and ability groups and the like. So these are all related discussions, and I'm looking forward to seeing how we do it next season. I know we've got great teams out there, like the Dirt Dogs, that have great culture. They can do the varsity athlete to the young kid, and it works pretty well. But that takes some thinking through. Like you said, you need to structure yourself for it mentally, and then also physically with your coaches able to do that.
Definitely. Definitely. Well, that was a whole lot of past and future discussion that we just had. I Is there any last thoughts you have on that? I mean, it's weird. Got a little bit of a NICA hangover from the season in general, just sort of you had to remind me that we were doing the podcast this morning. I was in summer mode. I was like, "Ooh, like I'm sleeping in." And then you're like, "I'll be ready in 10 minutes." Like I was like, "Okay, jumping into it." But there is that sort of like, you do that big exhale, and then we kind of get right back into planning and getting ready for the next season. And we want our coaches to sort of like, take some time for themselves. They don't need to be already thinking about next season. But definitely there's a few things for you to wind down and get ready for the next season, come back with enthusiasm. Is there any final thoughts that you have on the season past and the season future?
I just think we'll keep the lights on, so to speak, with this podcast, Sean. We'll do once a month, just tell folks kind of what's going on. I'll do a single track times once a month. So we'll go from that event-based single track times to just, hey, here's what's going on in the league. So that's a way just to stay connected. So I'd recommend folks just listen to the podcast, watch for the single track times, and just have a great summer. Get some riding in or do whatever else you're doing. It was great hanging out with everyone. We'll miss you over the summer. Love our league events and just hanging out with people. But like you said, yeah, let's take a break for a while, and we'll get back at it in the fall.
And my personal plan to help keep the lights on with our YouTube channel is to make some videos explaining sort of like why be a level one coach. I had a discussion with a team that is going to be new for us this season, and the coach said like, do you have anything that I can show to people to explain to them like what's involved in being a level one coach, like why be a level one coach, that sort of thing. And I was like, no, and I wrote it down. I was like, but I can make that. And so, something like that. Another video kind of like why become a level two, why become a level three. So that's just something that your coaches can sort of engage with and see, well, what are the benefits to me kind of moving up a level and progressing from being a level one, or even what's involved in me joining a team. And some of the most successful coaches that I've seen have been people that weren't really even mountain bikers. And I think one of the things that people get intimidated by is they think like, well, I'm not a racer and I'm not really like, I don't really ride a bike. And it's like, hey, we can take care of all that. So I want to do that to kind of help teams with recruitment and getting more coaches, because that's going to be a key thing for their expansion. But to that end, like the more of you that sort of like subscribe and talk about it and share videos with people, the more reach we get, and then that puts us in front of more people, more parents, more kids, and helps grow the league as well. So just simply engaging with our YouTube channel can help tremendously with us, and this idea that getting bigger and getting more available to student athletes and families in North Carolina would be great. So any help you can have, simply is just watching videos or subscribing, which really helps tremendously.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head. I hear far too often someone reaches out to the info email like, "Hey, interested, in my kid," and I'm like, "Hey, do you want to get involved?" And like, "No, I've never ridden my bike. I can't be a coach." Mm-mm. Two qualifications in this league: availability, willingness. Like, just can you care? Like, come on,
Yeah.
we'll give you the skills to get on the bike.
Desire goes a long way.
Available and willingness. There you go. There's two criteria to help out.
100%.
There you go.
All right. Well, it's everybody's least favorite time in the podcast. Uh, you already cracked the seal on a dad joke right off the bat, but I know you got another one loaded in the chamber.
I kind of did, and I remember that we failed to recognize you were down there, biathlon in that kind of big open field area. And,
Mm-hmm.
and did you notice the scarecrow that was down there, Sean?
No,
We failed to award the scarecrow, and why did the scarecrow rate an award at the end of the season?
I have no idea.
Because he was outstanding in his field.
Oh my goodness.
Hit it fields and level up, and anyway,
Well, so my dad joke is summer vacation themed,
of course.
because I know a lot of people are going to be enjoying swimming pools as things heat up this summer. And so, what do you call a cantaloupe in a swimming pool?
Oh, goodness. Fruit salad comes to mind, but that can't be anywhere close.
A watermelon.
Oh, there you go. Yes.
Oh, that one was, yeah. I was like, "Oh, that's really bad.
Oh,
Let me
that'll
leave that one
that'll
out."
get our YouTube ratings right off those 2.
Well, as always, thank you to the both of you that are still listening. We
That's right.
appreciate your perseverance in getting through the entire podcast. So thank you very much. And I know Bill, you're one of them. So Bill, loyal listener, thank you so much.
All right. Have a great summer, everybody.
All right, everybody, have a great summer, and we will see you soon.